Let's draw our lips. You will need a paper, pencils. If you have drawing pencils, get them out, an eraser, a sharpener, and a blending tool. If you don't have that, get out a tissue. All right, I'm starting with an 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to fold it in half because I only need half of it. I'm creasing it really well, and I flip it over and I recrease it again. I need that fold to be weakened. You can pull out your scissors and you can cut, or you could just rip it gently. I put my fingers against the fold and then I pull away and down. Notice my fingers are right at the fold and I move my fingers down as I pull away and fold. It's a handy technique to know if you don't have scissors and you need to get two pieces of paper out of one. I'm going to set this aside because I have to draw a nose later. I'm turning my paper horizontal and you think we're ready to draw? No, we need to observe first. First, notice that our mouth is symmetrical. Next, notice there's kind of a U shape right there in the center. And I always like to do one side first and then the other. It goes up to a point and then down and then up. Right? So I'm really noticing just what happens when my two lips meet. I'm also noticing that I'm symmetrical and I try to kind of copy it on the other side. Now, sometimes it's hard to distinguish the upper lip, the line that's created. So really kind of search for it. And even if your lips aren't the same, you will match them up. Now I'm drawing on a photograph. You're just looking in a mirror. You might trace it with your fingers. Now I'm going to mark the high points and the low points. Observe how they kind of mimic each other. We are going to use these marks when we do our drawings, so we're going to pay attention to the spacing. One more thing I want you to be observing. Look carefully at your lips and notice that there are these lines that are curving. They're curving on the top lip and on the lower lip, and they curve one direction on one side of your lips and the other on the other side. Look closely at the line that was created when your lips meet. It's thicker in some areas and thinner than others. Really, it's just the value change, darker in some areas and lighter than others. Okay, now it's time to draw. Remember, they're symmetrical. Let's mark the halfway point. But I'm not going to put a full crease. I'm just folding my paper in half and putting one tiny little mark in the center. Do a light mark there. I'm going to make mine darker or else you're going to have a really hard time seeing it. This is one of my drawing pencils. It's a 2B. I'm never going to go darker than that. So I just put a little mark to show that it's the center of my lips. Now what I have to do is, where's the edge? I'm going to put a mark over here because I'm going to use up most of my paper. Now, this is a trick I like to use. I like to take my pencil as a measuring tool. So I put my finger where the line is. I've moved it over. I tip the pencil up and I make a little mark. All right, that helps me to measure. I always have a pencil with me so I can use that as a measuring tool. You could also use a ruler. Or you could grab a spare piece of paper and line it up. But you do need to make sure that they are the same distance. So whatever method works for you works fine. All right, remember how we did our observations. Next, I'm going to start marking where there are changes in my center line, right? The line that was created when my lips meet. So I need to do that measuring. Again, I did one side and now the other side has to match. I like the trick with my pencil. So I line up my pencil with the marks, I put my finger there, I move it over, I tip. Again, you could use a ruler if you want. You could use a piece of paper, but they have to match. Now I'm at the point where I need to do my center line, and I need a reference, a horizontal line. So I am going to fold my paper in half. You could draw a line, but since we're practicing sketching, it's quicker this way. If it was on a portrait, you'd pull out your ruler and take your time. Now that I have this reference of a line, I am going to start looking at the left half of my lips and draw it. You're thinking line at this point, not lips. Where does the line curve up? Where does the line curve down? What's the distance? I only look at the left half when I'm observing. So if you're looking at your face in a mirror, just look at one side. And then the other side, you were actually copying what you previously drew. Don't bother to look in the mirror at the right half. We want them to be the same. We want them to be symmetrical, even if there are slight differences. Take your time, do any erasing that you have to, and once you feel good, move up to your upper lip. Typically, the upper lip starts with a V or a U in the center. Now what I need to do is pay attention to the spacing. What is the space between that center line and the upper lip? There's a reason I started with the center line. That gives me a reference for how wide, I can now make my upper lip and my lower lip. Again, if you're looking in the mirror, you're only looking at one side. If you decided to do the left half of your lip, then that's what you're observing, and then the right half is just a copy. When I move to the bottom lip, I will need to know how wide it is, so I'm going to need to make a mark in the center. Even though it seems simple, like a simple smile, I do need to know how wide the bottom lip is and what is kind of the angle of that curve. So you're going to take your time, and again, ultimately, you're going to want them to be symmetrical. Take your time here, spend some time correcting some of your lines, do some erasing, do some fixing, get it all the way you want it to be, and when you feel like the spacing is correct and the lines are correct, go ahead and erase your guidelines. It's time to start adding in. Remember how I said observe, notice these curves in our lip? It's time to start adding those in. That's going to help to create volume. We had created lips that looked two-dimensional, flat. Now we want our lips to look three-dimensional. They kind of project from our face a little bit. So these lines are going to create value, which we can modify and will help us to look like our lips now are kind of popping off the page. All I'm doing here is I'm creating curved lines. They change direction depending on what side of the lips they are on. I will speed up the video a little bit so it looks like I'm going fast. I'm not. I did some spacing between those curved lines. I am now kind of redefining that center line, and now I'll go to the bottom. I'm having curved lines on the left side of the lips and then curved lines on the right side. Notice the slight change in the curve depending on what side I'm on. Remember I talked about blending? If you don't have a blending tool, get out a tissue. Use it and gently, don't rub hard, gently rub over those lines so that you can still see the lines, but now we've created a nice value over the whole lip. This is our underlining value. Now we've given value, and now we're going to increase the dark areas and light areas. Art has additive and subtractive art. So right now we did a tissue and it removed some of the graphite. Pick up your pencil and start adding some back. I'm adding those curved lines back in, but not the whole way. If you observe your lips in the mirror again, you'll notice that where they curve and they meet, less light is there, so it's darker. So I'm going to reinforce that darkness by drawing some partial lines near where the lips meet. I can go back and I can darken in some of the lip line again. I'm also going to add partial lines on my bottom lip towards the top and the bottom. You'll notice, observe your lips. In order for them to look like there is form, volume, you need to have light areas and dark areas. So far we've used a pencil and we used a tissue. It's going to be time to start using an eraser. You're going to want to do some highlighting as well. So you're going to be redoing these techniques, adding more lines, blending some areas, and then erasing some areas. So here comes the eraser. I actually use it as a drawing tool and start to erase curved lines, just like I drew with my pencil, but now I'm erasing some of that value with my eraser. It's a building process. I have definitely sped up the video, but it didn't take too long. If you give yourself 15 minutes in this portion, you will be amazed what starts to appear before your eyes. Take your time, observe your lips, add graphite, remove graphite, blend graphite, and watch your lips appear.